All right, Karl, thank you so much for your time. What are Singapore Airlines' plans for boosting capacity back into Australia?
Australia's always been a key market for us. For almost 55 years we've been operating there, and we're really excited that come May we'll deliver a second daily A380 to Sydney, which will take our capacity into the Sydney market back to about 98%. Compared to pre-COVID levels in January of 2020. And from the middle of May as well, the 16th of May, Melbourne will get an A380 for the first time since January of 2020, and that will take the capacity into the Melbourne market back to 110% compared to pre-COVID levels. So we're putting capacity back into the Australian market to meet the demand that is there, both for travel, both to and from.
Sounds like you're getting back to full pre-capacity levels, what you were like before COVID. How important is that for the carrier in Australia?
Australia's been a critical market for us for a very long time, particularly for that kangaroo route, Australia, Singapore, and then on to England and of course the rest of Europe. So, we have been incredibly nimble and agile in terms of deploying capacity across the network as different markets have recovered. And the good thing is that because Australia is so critical to operations, we have seen a good lion's share of capacity come into that market to meet the demand that is there. That demand is continuing to remain high and remain strong moving into 2023 thus far. Hopefully it continues. So bringing those two A380s back, one for Sydney and one to Melbourne, will help to meet that demand.
What are some of the ways you're stimulating capacity with Australia in terms of, you've had a couple of sales on recently, which is exciting. What are some of the ways you're doing that?
Absolutely true. We are very keen to try and stimulate demand as much as we can, but also show the general consumer that sales are a regular thing and that they will return to the market. And last year we released our early bird fares. We were one of the only carriers in the market to release early bird fares, and we saw incredible take up of that. It was hugely popular, and actually what we saw was a lot more people booking early bird fares during that early bird booking window than we had prior to COVID. And just recently we wrapped up our New Year's takeoff fare, which was putting in place some really exciting fares to key Southeast Asian and North Asian destinations that have just recently opened, and the appetite for travel to those regions was incredibly high as well. So the appetite for travel isn't in any way, shape or form diminishing at this point in time, and we'll continue to do what we can to provide excellent quality airfares into the market for people to travel.
How important has the A380 been then? I know that some cities are constrained in terms of arrivals and departures, places like Sydney, places like London. So you're using the A380 to its maximum and actually utilising it well, while other airlines are retiring them.
The A380 is a critical cog in our network and within our aircraft fleet, and it's a hugely popular aircraft for a lot of great reasons: the space, the comfort, the quietness. It's a beautiful aircraft, and the ability to be able to place that onto two key routes from May. We already have one into Sydney, but to move that to double daily A380 operations, which is what it was pre-pandemic, as well as reintroduce the A380 into Melbourne, is critically important, like I say, to help increase that capacity. So being able to pop two A380s into Sydney twice a day, every day, increases capacity quite significantly, and like I say, takes us back to about 98% of our pre-COVID levels.
And if you look at the capacity and you look at the demand, how's the demand for you? Obviously, we are seeing specials out there, but we're also seeing incredible demand for the luxury market. How are you seeing it at the moment?
Look, premium travel has certainly not dissipated in any way, shape or form since borders reopened in November of 2021. And for the Southwest Pacific region, so that's Australia and New Zealand, if you look at our operations for the last 6 months from around about September through to January, the Southwest Pacific region has averaged load factors of 93.5%. So when you break that across the 9 destinations that we fly to in Australia and New Zealand, so 7 in Australia and 2 in New Zealand, you've pretty much got every single flight every day leaving the country full, bar maybe one that might have 5 or 10 seats left on it. So demand is incredibly high. We can't keep up, to be honest with you. We'd love to have more aircraft coming in, but obviously that's got to be done in a really sustainable manner to bring capacity back into the market so that the ecosystem can accommodate those increases in schedules, increases in seats, increases in passenger numbers, and we'll continue to do that over the course of 2023.
Many people come to Singapore out of Australia, but a lot go onwards to other ports in Asia, other ports in Europe, and even the Americas obviously as well. So how excited is Singapore Airlines about the upcoming northern summer, which the demand for Europe again was huge last year, higher expectations even this year as well?
Yeah, we're certainly seeing high demand for travel into Europe for the northern summer of 2023 in all cabin classes, not just in the premium cabin classes, but also through premium economy and into the economy cabin as well. And ultimately, we know the kangaroo route, a highly popular, well-trod route for Australians. But the other way as well, Australia has done a phenomenal job in promoting itself back to the market, particularly to European destinations. One of the key markets of China has remained closed for a long time. So the ability to really promote itself to a new demographic, a new market within Europe should see a lot of traffic coming back the other way. So we've worked really hard to ensure that what we've got currently on our network is the ability for people to travel to and from Australia comfortably, give them options of flight options, both in terms of schedule, in terms of aircraft, and in terms of timing, to make sure that they've got a flight that meets their needs when they want to go and where they want to go to.
Particularly with a lot of Asia reopening up. Japan reopened up a few months ago. China's just started to open up. Hong Kong starting to open up. Obviously, that's your backyard, and that's an exciting time to see how fast that's all happening now.
Yeah, it's exciting to see North Asia starting to open, and obviously the opening of China is going to be critical to that. I suppose that final sort of 20% of the market coming back online. And ultimately, what is very exciting about that is a real return to normal. So it will take some time, obviously, for the stability of that opening to kind of get to a level of what we saw pre-pandemic, and for those markets to re-go and re-acclimatise with travel. But ultimately, it is very, very exciting. You know, particularly the likes of Japan reopening. That was a hot destination before COVID struck. And it seems to have remained incredibly popular for inbound travellers going back into Japan in 2023.
You've got a lot of very loyal travellers at Singapore Airlines as part of your PPS club, so that's obviously an exciting time for them to have the network being rebuilt fast. They can use their miles and they can earn miles as well.
Yeah, anecdotally from a number of events that we've held over the last few months since we've been able to go back to in-person events, particularly with our PPS members, it's been great to hear them recount their stories to us about them getting back on the aircraft, being able to fly, being able to undertake those business trips, those leisure trips, even those pleasure trips, the business mixed with leisure. And they've been incredibly grateful for the work that we've been able to do in terms of keeping our network connectivity there, even during border closures where they had to undertake that essential travel they could. And now obviously with that network regrowing, not just into Australia, but right across our global network into the Americas, into North Asia, Southeast Asia, Europe, and even into the subcontinent. Yeah, very grateful for the connectivity that we're providing.
And you're seeing a good mix of business and leisure travel at the same time now. Obviously, last year was very heavy with leisure, but business is coming back.
Look, absolutely, the corporate market is continuing to return, you know, in dribs and drabs. What we saw at the start of border openings in November of 2021 was quite obviously a huge influx of those who were reconnecting with families, those who were coming to celebrate and commiserate, those who were reconnecting after so much time, and it was a real pleasure to see and be around the airport when those connections were happening. And then after a few months, as the restrictions started to ease, what we found was more people were starting to take those leisure trips that they put off, starting to treat themselves to a little bit of an overseas holiday, and then the corporate market came back in. And so what we're seeing now is a little bit more of a regulation in terms of that type of travel that we saw pre-COVID, in terms of the mix between leisure, business and visiting friends and relatives. So no doubt over the course of the year it will continue to normalise in some respects, if that's even a word we can use anymore, in terms of the kind of passenger traffic and demand that we will see. But in terms of booking windows, in terms of the length of time between booking to travel, we are starting to see a far greater return to pre-pandemic levels and normalities of booking than we have for the last 12 months.
Awesome, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.